Welcome to Inside Paraplanning, the podcast from the PFS Paraplanners that shines a light on the skills, knowledge and insights shaping the world of paraplanning.
If you're curious about how to build a successful career in this profession, or you're just starting out, then this is the place for you. Each episode, we bring together voices from the PFS Paraplanning Panel, along with the occasional special guest to share practical advice, real experiences, and to help you grow and thrive.
I'm Hannah Wynick from the PFS Paraplanning Panel, and today I'm not only joined by fellow panel member Alan Gow,
Hello.
but also the wonderful Sam Patterson.
Wonderful.
Head of Proposition at Equilibrium Financial Planning. Sam first joined Equilibrium as a client manager and later became a team leader, spending close to 5 years servicing clients and supporting the team in delivering exceptional financial planning. After stepping away from Equilibrium to set up his own business, he had the opportunity to collaborate with a range of financial planning firms, refining their processes, developing their teams, and enhancing their service offerings. But Equilibrium has always been special to him, so when the chance came to return as head of proposition, he knew it was the right decision.
So today together, we're going to explore the pathways into the role, the qualifications that matter, and how ongoing learning can set you up for long-term success. So let's get started. Sam, welcome. It's really good to have you here.
Thank you very much. Glad to be here.
So what does typical career progression look like for a paraplanner? Is there such a thing?
It's a funny question because I don't think there's even a typical paraplanner. We've just read through my career, and I would say up until maybe 5 years ago, I was a typical paraplanner. Before joining Equilibrium the first time, I actually had a stint a year as a traditional, I would classify as a traditional paraplanner. I sat in an office 5 days a week. I had no client contact. I was given some scruffy notes and a fact find, and I was spending a lot of time on the phone to Aviva, getting product information. Then I joined Equilibrium and in a client manager role, which is you'd have the responsibilities of a traditional paraplanning role, but with more client contact. You're in client meetings and you're the first point of contact. I'd classify both of those as paraplanner roles. So actually, what I think is great about the role of a paraplanner is there isn't a typical role associated with it, which means actually in terms of progression, there's loads of different routes. I think looking back 5 years, there was 4 main routes. You could become a specialist in-house. So you could start to either specialise in a certain subject or working with a certain advisor. You could go self-employed. So you could become an outsourced sort of self-employed paraplanner. You could become a manager, go into team management, leading a team in-house, or you become an advisor. And they were traditionally always the 4 main progression routes. But I think thinking in the future, I can also see that changing as well, which I think it is a really exciting time to be in the paraplanning profession at the moment.
It's interesting because my entry to the role was working for an IFA and I just did paraplanning for him. And then I became self-employed. And then as the company grew and I took on stuff, I became a manager. Step 4, being an advisor, that's not me. So, that makes sense. I can relate to what you've said. But sometimes I go out to events and I get chatting with other paraplanners and you find out when you kind of look outside your own silo, you find out so much about what other people do and how different it can look. It's quite remarkable how different paraplanning can be from one firm to another. Is that your experience?
Absolutely. You get 10 people, 10 paraplanners in a room and ask them to describe the jobs. You're going to get 10 different answers. You wouldn't even think they work in the same profession. You've got some people that, and I'm seeing less of this, but certainly 5 years ago, that just were there to send annual reviews out and make some teas. You had other people that were essentially doing an advisor job and everything in between. So yes, currently I still see a lot of variation, but I also see it varying even more in the future. We were just chatting briefly before about AI in meeting notes. Currently, whenever you go to an event, I can guarantee 90% of the sponsors are AI companies that all say they'll do the same thing. So who do you attach yourself to? Which company do you like the look of? That, by its very nature, doing due diligence into third parties is what paraplanners do. But I think it'll transform over the next 5 years is that you'll start to get picking up more on sort of AI companies. I think that's a real niche where paraplanners could grow if they were looking to progress their careers. You also just said there, you started off as an in-house paraplanner, same as me. And I got most of my information, the way I learnt was picking up the phone, calling Aviva, calling Standard Life, asking about pensions that I'd never heard of before, asking about structured products. And I learned that way. I learned on the job asking questions. I think a risk we've got in the profession at the moment is AI is going to do that. These mundane tasks, that's the way we learned our craft and it got experience. I think AI is going to start to take some of those basic mundane tasks. Do I think AI is a threat to paraplanning? No, I think it'll just enhance it. I think it is a threat to those trying to get into the profession because I think it'll start to take those basic jobs that you used to learn doing. And that's where I think actually another route that I think will open up for paraplanners is a trainer. It's a natural fit where if you can't learn on the job, you are going to need more specialist trainers, certainly in-house to help educate and develop the new profession, the new generation.
That's really interesting. So there's an opportunity here for all of us from AI, but actually it might be closing some doors on new people coming in when we need that so badly.
I was exactly the same as you, Sam. I learned from picking up the phone, asking questions that I didn't even know what the questions meant. I didn't know what the answers meant. But eventually, and I think either AI is doing that, or there are so many great outsourced or in-house admin functions, because I feel that the job has been really split. And, the admin function will go and do that. So if a paraplanner who hasn't maybe come up through the ranks, let's say, and started by doing financial admin, they might not have a clue what they're talking about or what this product is or how it works, but they're expected to get on and just learn it through textbook learning, and then that's that.
And I don't want anyone listening to think, oh, Sam's saying here that AI is going to take paraplanning jobs. I absolutely don't think it will. I think it'll just adapt our roles that we do on a day-to-day basis. We've been trialing at Equilibrium a number of different AI tools. We're looking at just how can we get better? How can we get our staff doing things they enjoy more of? Our whole philosophy is treat staff well, because if you treat staff well, they look after clients. Look after clients, it looks after shareholders. It's such a different way of looking at where the priorities of a company should land. But actually, just by trialing these AI tools, you start to take away some of the mundane tasks. But as I said, whilst it might take away paraplanners ringing up and calling providers, that could be replaced by, say, one of those trainers becoming a trainer to help educate, create case studies, train new staff. So I actually think it's a really, really exciting time for the profession. And I think AI will just enhance the benefits that we have whilst trying to take away some of the mundane elements.
I think it's interesting that there was in the PFS Paraplanning LinkedIn group, there was a conversation a while ago about regulating paraplanning. You were saying before about everybody does a slightly different job, and all the comments said the same thing, that there isn't a definition of paraplanning, and to regulate it would take away, in the same way that I think people are worried, oh, AI is going to take my job, which I agree with you. I don't think it's at that stage yet. But I think to regulate something like paraplanning and make it a specific, you've got to have these qualifications, you've got to be chartered, you've got to do this part of the job and only this part of the job. You are then going to take away a lot of what people do, because everybody's job, Alan and I both work in the same, sphere of outsourcing, but I guarantee what we do day to day is very, very different.
Yeah, absolutely. It feels like we could close doors here at a time when there's so many people retiring, and we're desperately trying to, get people interested and say, this is here. It's a career. You might not know about it, but this is a really good thing for people who certain aspects of the job that you really enjoy. If there's, I think there's a certain mindset in paraplanning or certain parts of the role that just sort of tick boxes for you and just go, yeah, this is my vocation. This is what clicks for me. If you don't know it exists, you're not going to find it. And anything that closes doors to that is a bad thing. And if that's things like paraplanners being regulated, then let's not do it. But if it's AI, you can't stop the rise of AI. And you can't stop companies wanting to drive efficiency in their firms by getting it to do what it can do. So, what will progression for paraplanners look like, going into the future?
More generally for the paraplanning profession, I actually see it as one of the, I don't think we sell the benefits of paraplanning enough to the profession ourselves. And what I mean actually by that is the role. I can't think of a role in financial planning that would suit part-time working as well as paraplanning. I can't think of a part of this profession that would support working abroad as well as paraplanning would. By its very nature, paraplanning, you're supporting a financial planner. If you want to do part-time, well, you just do less hours and you do less supporting. Actually, that's something I don't think we're doing well enough as a profession to really shout about it. Returning off mat leave, again, what a great where you don't have client responsibilities 5 days a week like a financial planner would expect. Your work is more specialised and your expertise is more valued. So actually working evenings, you can do that. And again, that's where AI could also help out. I could see in the future, gone are the days where you have to be on the phone at 8:30 to Standard Life because otherwise by 9 o'clock they're too busy to answer the phone. AI could get that information and you could log on at 8 o'clock at night if you wanted, just review the AI information. So it will make it more flexible. On the authorization regulated route is an interesting one. I think as a profession more generally, we still treat advisors like CF30s. That changed a few years ago. Actually, I think the definition is if you can cause significant harm to clients, you should be authorised. Can a paraplanner cause significant harm? Again, for those that are listening, I'm pulling a bit of a confused face because I'm not really sure on the answer myself. Ultimately, as we know, advisors sign off the reports and sign off the advice. They are taking responsibility. Through my mentoring a number of paraplanners, they proudly say advisors just don't even look, they just sign it off. So actually, when you know that's happening, it should be an authorised role. I'm not sure, but I think that is secondary for us just really knowing the benefits that it can have as a profession.
I think as well, there is an element that advisors, you're saying about, they're just signing off the work, they're not even paying. And definitely, Alan, I'm sure you've had the same. We come up against this as outsourcers. We've actually now implemented something in our business to say you physically need to confirm with us that you are happy with this piece of work. And then we have proof that it's on you and not on us. I think you're right, Alan, we would be shutting doors if we were maybe to regulate it. But I also see the benefits of regulating it because there are so many people out there who will call themselves paraplanners, rely on potentially on AI products that aren't maybe up to scratch just yet. And then that kind of dampens what we're doing in trying to sell ourselves as a profession. But I think there is something as well that because paraplanning is a little bit more well-known than, so for example, when I started, I would have to talk to advisors and explain what paraplanning was. So that was the first part of the pitch, if you like. So now that people sort of know, I feel in a way that we're not doing that, I don't want to say sales tactic, but we're not showing them, look, we can really, really add value by doing X, Y, and Z, because they already think that they know what it is that we do. And I feel like maybe we've lost that a little bit as well with trying to get people to work with paraplanners. We're not selling ourselves so well.
I think there is a halfway house. Again, at Equilibrium, our client managers, our paraplanners co-sign reports. So it could be this report was given advice from Hannah, but the report was written by Sam. So if you have any questions, give them a call. Some paraplanners listening might go, an unexpected call from a client on a thing I don't stick your email down. It's a way for paraplanners to get better known. It's a way for the firm to demonstrate how under consumer duty you're adding more value to clients because you're making the client aware of two people that are working on the case. And actually, from a paraplanner's perspective, that's your work.
I was just about to say, you've written it. How many times have you written a report and it says, this was written by blah, blah, blah. And I think, no, it wasn't. I wrote that.
That's a really nice approach, actually, getting the credit for what you're doing, but also showing the value and building the relationship. And I know when I was working in-house, it started off that I would take calls when the advisor wasn't available and I would take messages. And then you slowly get to know some of those clients. And as your knowledge and ability to actually answer the questions builds up over time, then you actually start to be able to deal with those calls and you're not taking a message anymore. You're just talking directly to the client. And for a lot of paraplanners, they attend client meetings as well. And you've got an extra level of depth to that relationship. So it's a great thing to be able to do. And it's really going to help you grow, as a paraplanner.
And it helps. So I'm a paraplanner I used to mentor her. She was based in London. She earned over £100,000 a year as a paraplanner. Why did she did that? Because that's the level of value she added to that company's director, doing exactly as you just said. That company, they'd worked together for years. She did not want to be an advisor, but she was confident enough to speak to clients. She knew the client's kids, the client's grandkids. She would answer calls off them. By her ability to do that, allowed that director to only work 3 days a week. So actually, the price of having someone in your business that can take 2 days, allow you to start semi-retiring, is invaluable to some of these directors. As you say, constantly you're seeing in the market that there's exit strategies for firms and passing on to some consolidators. at Equilibrium ourselves, we've recently just taken on investment from a private equity firm. It's when you go through that process, you realise there's no perfect way to exit a business. It's something you work all your life towards. You spend more time at work than you do with your own family. To try and actually exit that business as a business owner is a very tricky thing. And by having a paraplanner that's competent, that is valued, that feels empowered in their own role, can actually help smooth that transition of a business owner out of the business. It works for the business owner because they know the business is in safe hand. It works for the paraplanner because they can ask for some more responsibilities. You're adding greater value. You should deserve to get paid a bit extra. So it's a win-win for everyone. That's not traditional paraplanning though. And this is where I get really excited. I think about where the profession can go as we start to trust ourselves and the value we add to this profession more and more.
Do you think that, because I think one of the things that we as paraplanners always get asked is, well, you want to be an advisor and that's your logical next step. But actually, there are so many other places that, you're saying this is an area that really interests you. There are a lot more, places that we can go. Are you finding that there's been a shift? People aren't just using paraplanning as a stepping stone to being an advisor. They're going into maybe compliance or technicals. But are you finding that that's happening more and more?
I found it myself.
Yeah.
I've been in this profession just over a decade. I'm 32. I have been asked at every step of the way, why am I not a financial advisor? The answer is I don't want to be.
Yeah.
When I joined Equilibrium, I remember the day. It was the 8th of August, 2017. I remember the day because at lunchtime, I went into a meeting room upstairs and started updating my CV for a marketing job or a recruiting job. I just did not think I had what it takes to crack the financial planning profession. Within a year of being at Equilibrium, I was a team leader, managing a team of 10. Half of them were chartered. The other half were diplomaed, all in the 40s or late 30s, 40s, some in the early 50s. And I'm there as a fresh-faced 24-year-old that 12 months ago didn't want to work in the profession. It's because I realised actually I get my energy from other people. Whereas people say, that's why I should be an advisor. You go, no, because what am I good at? I'm good at team management or relationship management. I'm good at communicating. I'm disciplined. And that's not telling someone off. That's just doing what you say you'll do when you said you'll do it. I enjoyed the technical element of the role, and I like attention to detail and that person-to-person relationship. They're all the skills you need to be a manager as it is for an advisor. So I am seeing it more and more is when you start to see the interlink of these skills, you need to do different roles. I am starting to see it more and more. Off the back of that, I set my own business doing consulting and mentoring. And now I'm head of proposition. I come up with the vision and the ideas that this business should follow. And this is what good financial planning is. And that's all because of the foundations of a paraplanner, which fundamentally, the best way I can describe it is a financial planner is an artist and their job is to paint a pretty picture for clients and use different colours and react to what they see in front of them. A paraplanner is a scientist. They have no agenda. They have no targets. They just test different hypotheses to see what works. And when you start to think of it that way, it links to so many different roles in the profession.
I feel better now because I was dreadful at science at school, like genuinely dreadful. But now I feel better now you said that.
So for paraplanners who are listening today, who are thinking, okay, I've heard your example of the paraplanner that you mentored who was on a very high salary and allowed her advisor to work part-time because they did so much. And the journey that you've been through that you shared with us today, how do you get from where you are now to those sorts of positions? How do you position yourself so that you can grow and become the best version of you?
Stand out. And that's it's a very high level answer, but that's how I stood out. I found a niche. My niche was just after COVID. I was a team leader at Equilibrium. At this point still, I've been there for I was in probably my 4th year. And one of my team members called me up and said, Sam, a client has called up and asked for a withdrawal fund. Grandkids' university costs, or was it high school costs? I said, okay, thanks. Why do I need to know that? He said, because he did the same last week. He did the same the week before. I think he's losing capacity. So well, how old is he? He's 76. Oh, actually, all our processes at the time, this is back in 2020, vulnerability wasn't as well known as it is now as before Consumer Duty days. We had a very, very rigorous task process internally when you hit 80. So actually, so actually, how do we react to this? What can we do? Can we stop a client asking for their own money? That's not our job. We help to facilitate it. And then you start opening yourselves up to all these grey areas that come with vulnerability. But that was my niche. That was something that I put it forward, came up with a proposal at work. We need a better, I want to call it the extra care policy. I trained it. I came up with the policy. I've had multiple trainings of it. And it was a way that I got noticed. Internally, I never used to do anything on LinkedIn. I didn't go to events. It's just a way to get noticed internally. So someone thinking about, okay, I get what you're saying, Sam, how can I stand out? Find your niche. It doesn't have to be extra care. It could be intergenerational planning. It could be investments. It could be AI due diligence. It could be a pension specialist. If you're still doing DB transfers, well, I'm surprised you can still find any, but it could be that. Find something you're passionate about, take ownership of it, and find your niche, and it's the best way to stand out. And the doors that will open is massive.
Have you got any, Alan? Because I'm just thinking a very wise woman that you might know pretty well once told me to just have an opinion. And I'm not just saying this, like genuinely changed the way I thought about my job, my business, myself. And it made such a difference that just having an opinion vocally, you don't have to be obnoxious or anything, but if you're thinking it, put it out there on LinkedIn. If you want to comment on something, like have that conversation and that will help. So that was my niche, I suppose. Is there anything that you, Alan, have that's yours?
Gosh, I don't know.
Putting you on the spot now, sorry.
It's quite difficult to answer because I do tend to keep my head down, and my sort of forays into, well, I used to, I suppose, my forays into even social media, I was just such a slow starter. It didn't feel comfortable to me. And I'd have my opinion, but I'd also have that kind of, yeah, but what if I'm wrong? Or what if there's something I don't know or something I don't understand? So I'd kind of keep my mouth shut. But it changes over time, I suppose. And even if you have that conversation with somebody or you express that opinion and someone comes back and says, actually, no, I don't see it like that. I see it like this. And at the end of it, you're thinking, yeah, actually. And you've moved my thinking on and you've helped me develop and progress. And if you don't engage with people, you don't get that.
I think that's so important. I know that there's so much out there on social media, and LinkedIn for paraplanners, in my opinion, is a great the tool for social media. You know, that's where you, for outsourcers especially, that's where your client bank is predominantly. But I think just, you know, having those conversations, even if it's just commenting on something that's really minimal or, you know, just putting your head above the parapet a little bit, you know, like I say, you don't have to be rude or, you know, there are some people on there get very carried away, but I think it's important that your name is out there, and then you sort of, you know, get involved with things like this or other strategies that are happening in the industry, and that just pushes you forward as a person and gets your name out there.
I'll push the have an opinion one step further. And it's have an opinion, but be able to communicate it well.
Yeah, back it up.
So if you went to say, you know what, I want to be an intergenerational specialist, that's wants to be my niche. If you have a client on Hargreaves Lansdowne, I know exactly off the top of my head the highest dividend paying investment fund you could switch into. You could give that away tax-free. You can go into really complex areas. Having an opinion about a complex matter is a good way to get noticed. Actually, you need to be able to explain your opinion in a really, really simplistic, easy to understand way. So I think of intergenerational planning, well, it's easy. You can fix it in 4 ways. Client can spend it, they can give it, they can insure it, they can invest it. Giving it, we can give it to a trusted individual, and you have all the different complexities with that. But yeah, I'd say, yeah, have an opinion, but be able to communicate, really know your subject matter and be able to communicate it as simply as possible. It's really easy to make something complex seem complex. The real skill paraplanners actually in their role as well is to explain something complex in a simple way. I only watched it the other day on 9th of November. Martin Lewis did Kate Gannon from the deputy president of the PFS was on it. He explained at prime time, 8 o'clock on ITV, to a national audience what investing is. What are stocks and shares? What are corporate bonds? What are tax wrappers? The way he described a tax wrapper is like a glass, and the investments of the water you put into it. That water could go into a bottle, it could go into a different type of glass. If you want a way of how do you explain complex matters in a simple way, just go watch that on ITBX.
We've talked about this in other episodes where we've said, when we've talked about getting started in paraplanning, that we now presume that everybody knows what an ISA is. But actually, there are so many people out there that have absolutely... I remember when I didn't work in this industry, the guy coming in to talk to us about the workplace pension scheme, and bearing in mind my dad was an IFA who I clearly did not pay any attention to, I came home and I was like, I've learned what a pension is and I've learned about risk. And he was like, I've been trying to tell you this for years. And I'm like, well, you're boring when you talk about it. But, this guy did it I wasn't interested when it was him, but this guy came in and he talked about it in a really, in the most basic of layman's terms. And I totally understood it because I was interested in what he was saying. Obviously, my dad was interesting, but just not to me. But, we take for granted that we know what we're talking about. So if you can make it as straightforward, like you say, what Martin Lewis does, more people will become excited about it and then hopefully then start to invest. And then that snowballs into us having more to do.
So thinking about next element of training and development, let's talk a bit about exams, formal qualifications. So obviously there's a whole range of different types of qualifications out there. How do they impact on your career progression? Are exams important?
I love this question because I've never known a question to divide an audience as much by asking this question. I think exams are very important. I don't think exams are important for technical knowledge. I think what exams do is prove you are willing and able to dedicate hundreds, if not thousands of hours that you could be spending with your friends and family to your profession. To an employer, that's what exams prove. It proves that when I'm sat across from an advisor, I've done the exact same qualifications that you have. I might be better qualified than you. My opinion matters if you've got an advisor that's against it. So actually, I am of the opinion that exams are massively important. Do I think I don't agree with, and this is against the grain because it exists. I'm not going to bury my head in the sand. I don't think there should be salary brackets for qualifications because of the qualifications itself. But should someone that's chartered, that's done thousands of hours of their own time, dedicating their own time into doing qualifications, be paid at a higher level than someone that's diploma or not qualified? Potentially. That then brings up the challenge I've had in the past is that I'm a new father. I just don't have the time to spend my weekends and evenings. I'm trying to work out what a dad is, let alone do my exams. That's where your employer steps up. That's where you really are starting to notice, I think, massively in this profession, the difference between a good employer and a bad employer. And people are starting to notice that is not just working from home and the sort of buzzword that was after COVID is sort of expected. I think what is setting employers up now is, well, how much exam support do you do? Do you offer some study groups in the business? A lunch and learn. If we were here and we were doing AF1, and I've done AF1, so I could sit here and open the book and just learn together. The cultures that employers are now starting is what's going to step people up. I've had someone ask me about the paraplanning, the CI paraplanning exam. I've not done it. Should I have done it? Possibly, but I'm a father of a 15-month-old. I'm still trying to work out how to change a nappy without a fountain going off. But wasn't expecting to say that on this podcast.
That's all right. You said you're a father of a 50-month-old. For a moment, I thought you were going to say you're a father of 15. So,
we've had stranger things been said to her. I think it's interesting because there's obviously the experience versus exams debate, which I think both have place. Also, for me personally, I am not a fan, controversial opinion, of people that just get through their exams as quickly as possible. I think it's a great achievement to be able to say you've done them, but you have to apply what you're learning. And I think that's where the experience comes in, because I know some chartered advisors who make the most horrendous mistakes and some diploma advisors who their behavioural and educational sessions with their clients is second to none. So I think it's that fine balance.
That's interesting because I think I don't mind that. And I'll explain a bit why. So I became chartered in 4.5 years. I was waiting just for that 6 months in the profession before I could become chartered. Why did I do it that quick? Well, I was in my early 20s. I didn't have kids. And then COVID came along, I couldn't do anything. So I did a lot of exams and assignments. What I would say is by doing my exams so quickly, it allowed me those hundreds of hours outside of work time I could dedicate to something else.
It's funny. So I don't think that I've heard people that want to do it in 2 years for chartered. And that to me makes me go, why the race? 4.5, that sounds...
It depends on what you're using with that extra time. My career took off when I got my chartership because I wasn't spending... If I was still doing my exams, I couldn't have dedicated 2-3 hours a night to learn everything I could about the vulnerability and the FCA stance on it and the application of vulnerability. I just wouldn't have had the time because I'd have been doing AF1 or AF7 or AF8 or whichever one I was doing at the time. So it's all about, I think, are qualifications important? Yes, but I'm going to speak and sort of go back on what I said earlier, but they're not the be-all and end-all, I think, is my main point. They are good for what it demonstrates, but they can't be relied upon solely.
Yeah, I agree.
That kind of reflects my experience because I did I did FPC under the old exam regime, and then I got the diploma, and then child number 1 and child number 2, and that was life kind of full for a bit, and I didn't do any other exams for years. But that whole time I was paraplanning, and so you kind of study, you get the basics, you carry on applying that information and learning how it works in different scenarios. And then I came back to exams and it felt quite different coming back to it. Much as it was hard to do the first one after such a big gap, you've got a different context for what you're learning. And that really helps.
I think as well, so for me personally, I was doing this job for years before I'd done my level 3s, like just to, know what I was talking about, know what an ISA was. But because of my ME and the way that my cognitive sort of memory and everything was not impaired. That sounds very dramatic, but my memory, I'm not a great exam taker at the best of times because I can't regurgitate it on demand. But what I can do is apply it. So for me, for example, coursework is a much better way of doing it. But I didn't do exams for years because I was just doing my job and I was enjoying doing my job. And when I suddenly thought, I should probably get on this now. Everybody, all the paraplanners were suddenly starting to do diplomas. And okay, I know it's going to be a different route for me. But exactly like you, Alan, I could look at it differently because I'd been doing the job for, 7 or 8 years by that point. And I knew I could do my exams, but it was just getting past that barrier for me. So I think everybody it's finding that balance that fits you. And we've talked previously about sort of finding your own learning style in previous podcasts. And I think that is really important as well because you find your own style of learning, but then you also find your own way of your own route. I think we really look at the RO 1 to 6, but actually for me, I really liked the but the one that's just financial planning because you can pick your modules. I was doing things that were relevant to what I was doing in my day-to-day because that made the learning easier. And actually, that worked pretty well in the end.
I don't agree also with job roles saying paraplanners should need to be a minimum of diploma.
Oh, I know some great paraplanners that are not qualified.
Because they're the same jobs that actually if someone goes, I've self-studied and I've got my level 4 diploma, that they apply for that job and they say you've not got the experience.
But then in the same breath, I know some amazing fellows who have been told, well, why bother being a fellow if you're not going to be an advisor? And the answer is, well, because I need to know it. I want to know it. I've wanted and I've loved this journey of doing it. But also, I don't want to be an advisor, but why should I be any less qualified than the advisor?
I think the main thing, though, is whatever qualifications mean to you is we've sort of touched upon it, is find a way that works for you. If you are trying to do qualification because you feel you have to do it and you're going to force yourself to do it, you'll struggle. Because you're not wanting to learn, you'll find it a chore. It'll start to impact your working relationships at work. It might start to affect things out of work because you're not replenishing your energy. So you've got to find a way that works for you. At the start of my career, I was told I used to open up the textbook, read every page and highlight because that's what my boss told me to do. It's only when I realised that I'm a kinesthetic learner and I didn't actually then open up a textbook for the remaining of my ROs. I would just do past papers until I could do 6 or 7 past papers. I could look at the number and I'd know if it was A, B, C or D because I've done it that much. And I thought I was trying to cheat the system, but actually it all goes in.
No, it does make a difference.
And I supplemented that with the audio material because I was sat in the car. This is a pre-COVID world. I was sat in the car for 30 minutes each way a day. So I'd listen to 30 minutes. I would get to work. I'd spend 15 minutes making notes from what I remembered. I'd listen to the same 30 minutes on the way home. Look back at my notes. Have I remembered the same things? And again, it's picking up on that. But yeah, Again, find something that works for you and try not to put pressure on yourself.
You said about like the bit, in the car and then making the notes. Are there any other kind of top tips, I suppose, for somebody trying to balance the idea of, busy world, busy life, busy job, but also wants to study?
I think it's hard. Find what works for you. Again, another thing that worked, if we were together and you were, say, my boss or a colleague at work, I'll give you a textbook and say, ask me questions on chapter 1. I've got a competitive streak in me. I used to play rugby. I don't like getting things wrong. So then having to say over and over, I don't know the answer to that, Hannah. Okay, you ask it, just picking random pages and asking questions. The more I said I didn't know the answer, the more I wanted to go learn that bit. But that's me knowing myself, knowing that's what works for me. Other people might say, I'm trying to think what else. Cue cards work for some people. It never worked for me because I didn't feel I had that level of accountability on myself. If I was feeling tired or wanted just to go through these 20 cue cards where you wrote a question on one side and the answer on the other, I would just say, I knew that and pass it on. I didn't hold myself accountable. To me, that having someone else with me, not holding me to account, at the end of the day, if I gave you a textbook and said, Hannah, ask me questions, you wouldn't care if I got it right or wrong, really. I cared. And that's just find what works for you. And again, it all comes back to work out which employer supports you. And if you have an employer and I've been there, you've left the exam centre, you've failed, and you've got to call the office because that's the culture, is you call the office to say if you passed or failed. And you say, I remember the first time I did it, I said, I failed. And they said, are you joking? That's the first exam I'd ever done in a career I didn't know, when I lived miles away from family.
That's made me really upset.
Gosh,
Sorry.
The impact it can have. Yeah. And it's how you start to spot good employers. I think qualifications are important, but they're not the be all and end all. And it's interesting to see how other employers treat qualifications is a real eye opener into the culture they have internally.
That's really interesting.
Yeah. So you were saying about how you would be able to make use of people in the office with you to help with your study and to test you. You mentioned earlier about mentoring. So just looking at, how working with other people can help paraplanners progress in their careers. Mentoring and kind of shadowing can play a role in your career as a paraplanner. Talk to us about that.
Yeah, so I'm a firm believer that if you have a top tier manager, that should be your mentor. I'm not naive enough to think, though, that everyone has a manager that they would look up to be their mentor. I believe that because that's what worked for me. I joined Equilibrium, as I said earlier, I was ready to pack it all in. I just wanted to live in Manchester with my mates and have fun and go into recruiting or marketing or something that I could be good at. My manager shifted my mindset on that. I've got involved more in mentoring now. When I left Equilibrium and set my own businesses, this is 2022, I think. I had my direct reports. I was basically doing a lot of training for the team. There's about 30 people in that team, and we worked together as a leadership team. I loved that person-to-person development, and I would miss it. I was going into a consultancy job where I worked on my own. I was going to work with qualifications. So I reached out to the Paraplanning Club, which is a fantastic organisation set up in 2021 by Sean Davies-Cole and Chloe Phillips. If you've been on LinkedIn in the past 20 years, you'll know who Sean is probably. And Hannah was one of our mentors as well. And I just joined it because I wanted to give back. It's where you see the best of the paraplanning profession, where there's so many people that are willing to give their time up, where they could be doing anything to help others. So yeah, if you've not got a mentor in a manager, it's not just the Paraplanning Club. The PFS have a mentorship program. Women in Banking and Finance have one. CISI have one. These are popping up more and more. I'd encourage you to reach out. There's a whole thing which is what's coaching, what's mentoring. The way I think of coaching and mentoring is a coach asks you questions to make you walk through the door. A mentor, someone that makes you walk through the door because you know what's on the other side. It's very different that mentors speak with experience. They speak from what works for them and helps to guide someone. And I just think back to when I was that, looking back, probably scared 21-year-old that was living 3 hours from home. I didn't want to go home. It's my first job out of uni. I didn't want my mates to think I failed at my first job. Who wants that on them? If I'd had a mentor at that point saying to me, Sam, are you happy? And I would go, nah, they would have made me realise actually I wasn't in an environment that I was going to thrive. And just giving that perspective of being there, done that, I think is invaluable. And it doesn't have to, I've mentioned a few mentorship programs. It could just be someone at work. It could just be someone on LinkedIn. Anyone who's thinking, oh, I don't want to apply for it, just put a post on LinkedIn saying, I am a paraplanner that wants to get better. Will anyone help me? You'll go viral overnight. Guarantee it.
I know a few people that have said, look, we're not part of any program specifically, but if anybody wants help, we've been through this and this, we can guide you. And it's just about, I suppose, having a buddy to kind of bounce off, even if it's nothing formal. It's having someone to go, do you know what? I want to get from A to B and I don't know quite how to do it and I need to sound it out. And actually, it is invaluable. Having personally done it, it is invaluable when you see, how the end result, and even after a few sessions, I was working with someone who we stopped working together purely because they had a lot going on and they sort of couldn't commit to what it was that they wanted to achieve. But they were saying, actually, what we've done in this really short space of time has been invaluable because it's changed the way I think about my role and what I can go to my employer and ask for and all these things. That actually, it was just having somebody to say, like, is this stupid? Am I going mental? Or could this be, could I go to my boss and ask for this? Or could I, put myself forward for this job or that job? And having somebody to sit with you and just talk it through almost, it's such a small thing, but it does work.
We've talked before about how we all kind of work in our silos. You get used to how you do things in your firm and how the people in your firm work. And it's really valuable to talk to people outside of that. And mentoring is a great way to do that.
It is, absolutely.
Sam, you've given us loads of great advice and insight today. I want to ask you one more thing, which is about soft skills for paraplanners who are looking to progress into more senior roles. Where do you think they should focus?
Communication. Absolutely, I think communication. It's a part of, if you want to progress into either a specialist role or if you go to a specialist role, you have to be able to communicate complex matters simply. If you go into an outsourced role, you have to be able to communicate with people that you don't work with on a day-to-day basis, be able to get a good grasp of where you are, what the information is, what they want from you, decipher that and give back a product that's suitable. If you want to be a team leader, you have to be able to read and communicate with your team, which isn't just speaking and doing reviews, it's picking up on when they come into the office and they don't offer from the brew because that's what they normally do. That's the opportunity we go, is everything okay, Alan? I still remember that I used to do that with my place, which is, how would I know when things aren't okay? It's like, well, I won't tell you, you just have to spot it. And it's what you have to do is, especially with some of your shyer members of the team potentially. So I think the best thing for me, if you want to progress, communication, and that can be written, it could be verbal, but being able to communicate your ideas is vital, I think. If you want more responsibility, I've not even told you if you want to be an advisor, you certainly need to be able to communicate then, and also build up a lot of resilience, I'd imagine. Actually on that, probably communication, and also don't take things personally. And I say that because it's easy to take things personally. It's easy to get frustrated, and it's easy to, I've messaged that person, but they've not got back to me. What a waste of time. Everyone's busy. So I think, communicate and just try to build up a level of resilience. I'm a big believer that work should not make you, if 10 is the happiest you've ever been in your life and 0 is rock bottom, work should not make you go outside of a 7 and a 4. Because if it makes you go over a 7, you're putting too much into your work. If it makes you go below a 4, I'd suggest looking for a new job. So, and that's what I mean by resilience. I don't think resilience is bouncing back. It's me not fluctuating too much that alters your state of mind. And that, again, is very important because we all know this profession can throw curveballs. We all know that in the run-up to the last budget, there was 2 months of speculation and rumours and worrying, and then nothing happened. But that's becoming the norm nowadays. Every March and every October or November this year, for some reason, there's always 2 months of worry. We're living in everyone gets sensationalised and populist and everything flying around. If you keep a level head, God, you'll stand out. If you make level-headed being your niche, you definitely stand out.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Sam. I think we're out of time. I'm just going to say we could probably have talked about this for hours, and I hope the conversation has given everyone that's listening some practical ideas and inspiration to help with your own training and development. I think building your skills and knowledge is the foundation of a successful career, and there's so many opportunities to learn and grow along the way.
So a big thank you to our special guest, Sam Patterson, for coming to share his expert knowledge today. And don't forget, the brand new PFS Paraplanning Panel Guide to getting started in paraplanning is now available. You can download your copy from the PFS Paraplanning page or via our LinkedIn group. It's packed with guidance, resources and tips to help you take the first steps with confidence and clarity to a potential new career.
If today's episode sparked ideas or questions, join the conversation in the PFS Paraplanners LinkedIn group. We'd love to hear your thoughts. And if you enjoyed the episode, share it with your team and hit subscribe so you're ready for the next one.
Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time on Inside Paraplanning.